Washington almost had one of the biggest choke jobs in the history of the college football playoffs. So they were up at one point, 34-21. They just get a fumble. And you know what they do with it? They try to go for the kill shot. They tried to put the final nail in the coffin against the Texas Longhorns. And it put them in a really bad situation in the end, a really nerve-wracking situation where they almost costed me some money because I took them to win this thing outright. They tried to get too cute at the end. They tried to do all kinds of halfback passes and shit like that and almost bit them in the ass. And Kalen DeBoer is too good of a coach for something like this to ever happen again. I was really surprised at seeing how Washington nearly choked this game away and gave it to Texas. And Texas in this game, Steve Sarkisian, bro, why did you get away from running the football? Running your running back, CJ Baxter, I believe his name was, at one point was averaging 9.4 yards per carry. And instead of feeding him the rock more, you end up trying to throw the football with Quinn Ewers. And Quinn Ewers had a really awful game. He didn't wake up until midway through the third quarter. He played really well in the fourth quarter, but he looked off in this game. And the main reason why Washington won this thing was because that's the best quarterback on the field at Michael Penix. At one point, Michael Penix was 18-21, and he wasn't missing. And these wide receivers with Jalen McMillan, Jalen Polk, Roma Dunze, they were giving it to that to that Texas secondary. And the biggest question that most of us had about this game was going to be, how was Texas secondary going to perform against this passing attack of Washington? You had Longhorn fans saying, man, the only reason our secondary looks so bad statistically is because we give up a lot of yards and garbage time when we're up by so much. Well, your secondary got roasted by Michael Penix and the Huskies, bro. Like, Michael Penix, I got a lot of pushback a couple of weeks ago when I said that he should have won the Heisman Trophy. I got nothing against Jalen Daniels, but what Michael Penix did in this game against Texas is something that he's been doing for the majority of this season. He's been the best quarterback in college football in my eyes. You look at somebody who was injured nearly every single season that he played at Indiana. All his seasons ended with season-ending injuries. He enters the transfer portal. He goes to Washington, and he just changes his career trajectory under Kalen DeBoer. And in this game tonight, I saw a Michael Penix that looked like a future top 10 quarterback in the league. He has a great arm. He throws the most accurate deep ball in the country. Not only that, but he was making great plays from within the pocket, stepping up, invading pressure, and he has a good amount of athleticism to, buy time for guys to get open. But with all of the injuries that he has sustained over the last couple of years, he isn't the most mobile guy, but he has enough mobility that you got to account for it. And this was not only one of the best performances that we've ever seen in the college football playoffs, but this is one of the greatest stories in the history of this sport. And that's what I love so much about college football. It's not always about the games and the matchups all the time. I pay attention to player stories. And I don't think it gets any better than the story of Michael Penix with all the adversity that he had to overcome at Indiana, having season-ending injury after season-ending injury, going to Washington, staying healthy for 2 years, and leading this team to the national title. And how about this defense? This defense, they didn't play great, but they made big plays and big stops when they needed them the most. Especially at the end when the offense damn near gave the game away, bro. Like, I was really disappointed in Washington's coaching staff because they were better than that. They were better than what we saw in the fourth quarter, damn near choking this game away. You should have ran the ball with Dylan Johnson or tried to get the first down. Why are you trying to get shot plays downfield? Like, we get it that you've been killing Texas secondary all afternoon. We understood that, and Texas understood it too. Like, they had a player that got ejected for the first half of this game in their previous game in a Big 12 title game. And he came back in this game and people thought that he was going to be able to improve the secondary. The secondary didn't get no better. You see, Texas defense is really talented on the front seven. And talent-wise, their secondary isn't even that bad. It's just that it's hard to stop a team that has 3 NFL caliber wide receivers like what Washington has and the NFL caliber quarterback in Michael Penix. In some capacity, You could say that Washington is a diet version of that 2019 LSU team. There were people comparing this Washington team to TCU. I was like, bro, how disrespectful can you be? In no stretch of imagination is Washington anywhere in the same ballpark of what that TCU team was. It's levels to this shit. They are better coached, and they're just way more talented than what TCU was last season. TCU beat Michigan based off Michigan beating themselves and a little bit of luck. Washington, they didn't need luck to beat Texas. They were the better team from the get-go. And from a talent standpoint, Texas looked like they had the advantage. But you see, that's why they say styles make fights. Going into this game, I heard Longhorns fans say, man, our pass rush is about to beat up Washington up front. You do know that Washington won the Joe Moore Award, right? Which gets awarded to the best offensive line in college football. You know how many sacks they gave up? 0. Michael Penix was throwing from clean pockets all night. And even when there was a little bit of pressure in his face, it didn't matter because he was unfazed by it. Sometimes you have quarterbacks that come around that just know how to play their best football when the lights are the brightest. And that's Michael Penix. And not just him, but this whole entire team. This is the same team that almost lost to Stanford and Arizona State, two of the worst teams in the Pac-12. Their second half stretch was a little bit wonky. They didn't look like the best team in college football during the second half of the year after they beat Oregon the first time. But you know, one thing that people felt to give Washington credit for is how well they're able to play in crucial moments of the game. And when their defense needed to get a stop to seal this win, they came through despite their coaching staff almost giving it up. At least Kalen DeBoer and the offensive side of the coaching staff, because that was terrible. I'm not going to stop talking about that. I'm still going to be talking about that until Washington proves to me that they win the national title and they win it all. So for the next couple of days, I'm still going to be harping on that, because what the fuck was that decision making? I did not understand why you're trying to get cute when you got the lead and you're up. And Texas got back in this game, and Texas defense, they didn't allow Washington to just go up and down the field on them all night long. They did play better in the fourth quarter. They held them to field goals, and they put this team in position to have an opportunity to win it at the end. And it's a little bit weird how Texas had one last opportunity to steal this game away from the Huskies, because Dylan Johnson got injured with only like 45 seconds left in the game, which stopped the clock and allowed Texas to have enough time to drive down the field. And it came down to one last play. And that one last play, what did the Huskies do? What they've done all season, rise to the occasion. I heard people say, man, this is the same team that almost lost to Washington State. They needed a game-winning field goal to beat Washington State. Oh, well, they barely beat Stanford. They barely beat this team. They barely beat that team. The same Washington team that nearly lost to Oregon State and Arizona State and Stanford and Washington State is the same Washington team that won another one-possession game in the Sugar Bowl against Texas. And while we're on the topic of Texas, Steve Sarkisian, you know, like his play call in this game was really questionable. Quinn Ewers, he didn't make things any better with how bad he looked in the first half and midway through the third quarter until he finally came alive. But you got to run the football more, bro. You can't go into the SEC with this pass-heavy approach. You got to be able to put the ball on the ground. And that's tough when you have someone who has this pass-first philosophy, because we know Steve Sarkisian loves to throw the football. He loves to spread the pigskin out. But when you're in these kinds of games, you got to be able to play complementary style football. You got to be balanced. And with Quinn Ewers looking so bad at one point, the best option for you moving the ball offensively was running the football. If you would have ran the football a lot more in this game, you possibly could have won it. Washington couldn't have stopped the run against you. They gave up 6 yards per carry. Every time you ran the football, it was money. But Washington, defensively up front, they didn't get pushed around like how people thought. And there was a guy named Braylon Trice, who I didn't really know too much about before this game started. I heard of his name, but I never really paid too much attention to him. And I watched a good amount of Washington football this year. This dude was all over the damn field. He had 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss. This dude was causing havoc on Texas' offensive line. And it's ironic how the way Washington was able to have success against Texas offensive line is what Longhorn fans thought their defensive line was going to be able to do to Washington. Like I told you guys that Washington's offensive line, not only are they big and athletic, but they got those Samoans up there. And when you got those Samoans can move. Like, we all get so infatuated with the talent that people have on the interior in the South, but on the West Coast, they got big boys who are pretty physical and really good in their own right. And what's even scarier is that when you have a quarterback that's this locked in, like how Michael Penix was, there's only so much you can do defensively. This dude was in the fucking zone. And when you got a quarterback that's just hot like this, anything that you call just seems to be money. You ever played Madden? And you ever heard something called a money play or one play touchdown? Well, Washington had a bunch of one play touchdown play calls on that play call sheet. Texas, defensively, with their pass rush being ineffective, it was a large reason why that secondary got exposed and hung out to dry. When you can't get pressure on a quarterback like Michael Penix, he's going to eat you up. And this dude moves incredibly well in the pocket. Like, his pocket presence is some of the best that I've seen all season long out of any other draft-eligible quarterback. He's like a stronger version of Tua Tagovailoa. He's really good in the quick passing game. He throws a nice deep ball. And then you got Roma Dunze, who is making big plays downfield. Texas, with them not having their front seven playing at the level that they've been able to play all season long, it costed them. There was no way they were going to be able to win this game without being able to get consistent pressure on Michael Penix. Washington, they've been counted out by the majority of America all season long. People were picking against them to lose to Oregon State. Everybody thought they were going to lose to Oregon. But for all you guys that have been following the podcast all season long, going back to in the preseason when I picked Washington to win the Pac-12 and to make it to the college football playoffs, I've been telling you that styles make fights. And stylistically, Washington was a bad matchup for Texas because Texas' biggest weakness all season long was their secondary. And when you got a wide receiving core this deep and this talented with a quarterback that has this level of efficiency, you're going to have a hard time being able to get stops. Fuck what the recruiting rankings say. Who cares if Texas has the more talented roster by recruiting? Recruiting doesn't mean anything. You still have to be able to go out there and show it on the field and prove it. And I was wrong about that. That's the same reason why I got, proved wrong in that Michigan-Alabama game, because I thought Alabama was going to win that game because of recruiting. But you see, stars don't really matter all that much in today's age of college football with the whole NIL and transfer portal era. Think about it. Michael Penix came from the portal. Dylan Johnson came from the portal, transferred from Mississippi State. So with the portal now, it has allowed teams like Washington, who may not be able to recruit at the level that Texas has, to be able to close the gap by being able to bring guys in from the portal that fit what they want to do stylistically. And Washington, this is one of those teams that they're like one of those vintage Mike Leach Texas Tech teams. Like, they don't need the run game to be able to beat you. Dylan Johnson is out. We don't know if he's going to be able to suit up for the national title game. But even if he can't play, I still don't think that it changes too many things about how that game is going to go. Washington is a team that wins based on how well they can throw the football. And there's not any team in America that's going to be able to stop this passing attack. Not even Michigan. They may be able to slow it down, but it's hard to stop a team that has 3 elite receivers. 3 first-round caliber wide receivers, and they're not undersized. All of these guys have great size. They're like 6 foot or taller, and they're like 190 or more. So for Washington, this was a big-time win for this program. This is the most publicity that Washington football has received since they last made it to the playoffs a while back when they lost to Alabama with Chris Peterson. You can never try to count out a team that has great coaching. And college football's best kept secret all season long was Kalen DeBoer. This was somebody who was winning championships at NAIA. He's won at every single level. This dude doesn't have more than 11 losses combined, not at Washington, but in his whole entire career coaching. Not only is this dude a stud head coach, but he has a stud coaching staff. So that's why I was so blowed with the mismanagement and almost choking the game away late in the fourth quarter, because this team has been so much better than that. This is normally a team that executes very well and they don't beat themselves. But the fact that they were able to overcome a near mishap shows you just how good and how well coached this team is. For Texas, I think that there's a lot of things to be optimistic about going into 2024. I mean, you got a big bankroll down there, so you're going to have the talent to be able to win in the SEC. That shouldn't be a question for anybody saying that, man, Texas ain't going to be ready for the SEC. You sound foolish. Because from a talent standpoint, they're just as good as Georgia and Alabama. They can buy anybody in recruiting. They can buy anybody in the transfer portal. The pockets run deep down there in Texas. And they probably got the deepest pockets out of any team in college football. They got the unlimited money glitch down there. So they're going to be fine. It all comes down to just how good of a coach is Steve Sarkisian moving forward. Has this dude truly turned the corner? Has he become one of the up-and-coming great coaches in college football? Time will tell. But Kalen DeBoer, this dude is a prodigy. I don't know how many of you guys watch Naruto, but he's like the Itachi of college football coaches. Kalen DeBoer, with how good of a coach he is and how good of a quarterback Michael Penix is and how deep they are at wide receiver, having a great offensive line and a defense that's more than capable of being able to get a couple of stops, there's not a single reason why they can't beat Michigan. So let me know what your thoughts were on this game down in the comment section down below.